Welcome back. You're watching Morning Prime. Thank you for staying with us. In case you're just joining us, good morning from wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to the broadcast on this 7th day of December 2023. We continue with our evaluation of the day's top stories as we interrogate what you need to know in terms of what's making headlines. And a lot has been conversed when you talk about the day's top story, where the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury had major pronouncements as he faced the parliamentary committee. We're in the red, we're paying salaries in arrears, and NGCDF might delay even further. Mind you, members of parliament had said they expect the NGCDF in their accounts by today, when Parliament will be going for recess. Well, that's one of the stories we've just evaluated, including other developing matters. And right now, we just want to shift focus to a story that you might have come across in the mainstream media, all to do with the controller of budget, Margaret Nyakango, who was charged in a Mombasa court with 4 counts, among them a 29 million shilling fraud case. The charges are from events that took place in 2019 and are linked to a SACCO under the name FEP. Margaret Nyakango, who has been vocal about questionable government spending, is accused with 10 others who are not in court. Let's just take a look at that report as we equally evaluate what has been covered on the dailies. Listen in.
Put it on the front page. Every paper.
24 hours after the control of budget, Margaret Nyakango pleaded not guilty of a number of charges, including fraud, false pretense, and operating a SACCO without a license, and released on a bond of 2 million shillings. The matter found its way to the floor of the House, with Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi claiming that the government is behind our woes.
Madam Margaret Nyakango came before us and made very, very serious allegations on how public funds are being misappropriated by people who are charged with the responsibility of managing public funds.
The leader of majority came to the government's defense, stating that no one is indispensable before the law, despite warnings from Speaker Moses Wetangula.
There is nothing in our constitution and in our laws that say either the Auditor General or the holder of an independent office like the controller of budget are immune to prosecution. And in fact, that will be the height of impunity.
In the same constitution that he made reference, a state officer is defined and it is known who it is. The controller of budget is a state officer. He should have also made reference to the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act.
Some of us hold a strong view that she was being, of course, hounded out of office. She was being pursued for her strong stance against misuse of public funds.
Yes. This is a matter before court, and what you are saying now is likely
I will
to undermine the integrity of the case, including the defense of the person you are defending.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga has also come out to question the timing of the arrest and subsequent arraignment of Margaret Nyakango.
She was interviewed and appointed, and before somebody is appointed to a position like that one here, you must get actually a certificate of clean conduct from EACC. It's one of those bodies. Why now? Did they not have those records at that time?
The fears by opposition leaders is that this move will easily open an avenue for any Kenyan to petition the president to form a tribunal and investigate the conduct of the chair.
Ordinarily, within the civil service practice, if somebody is taken to court, that person goes immediately on interdiction, more so on a criminal matter, and then with a half salary until the matter itself is determined. But when we established in these constitutional offices, I don't think we took that into consideration. I was in Parliament with the other time.
Her case is expected to come up for the first hearing on the 19th of December this year. Chris Tairo, KTN News, Nairobi.
Well, it's a matter before court, so we definitely can't expound on it too much, but there are parameters we can definitely touch on when it comes to the legality of a constitutional office holder and how it should work when they are facing charges and plead not guilty or guilty, whichever. Good thing we have a lawyer in the midst. So, Wakili, feel free to hold us back. A young budding lawyer.
Green on.
So,
please don't call him city lawyer.
Okay, of course. Yeah, it has a negative connotation to it. So, Wakili, feel free to reel us in case we're bordering sub judice and whatnot. But let's talk about the office that she holds. When it's an independent office, and we heard from the leader of majority that she is not above the law. Actually, the leader of majority is quoted in today's dailies mentioning she is subject to the law like any other person. The opposition benches feel the timing is suspicious. There's a political motive behind this. Let's start first of all, when you're dealing with the control of budget, because this hasn't happened before, when they're presented before court and the answer to charges, what next? Does she continue holding office? What does the Constitution say?
You see, Jesse, I'll say this, that when you look at the Office of the Control of Budget, it's an office that is established under Article 228 of the Constitution, and it's a very crucial office. It's not just like any other office. This is the office that authorizes expenditure at both levels of government. It authorizes withdrawals both at the county and the national government from the national coffers. The person who is now at the helm of that particular office, where there are reasons to believe that maybe she is criminally culpable, I think it is not wrong to charge her in a court of law, as was done. I think in as much as we leave the case to take its own course, the big question is, now that she's out on a cash bail, what next? I would be worried if she was charged under the economic crimes law, because that is the law that would limit or have certain consequences upon a state officer such as herself if she has been charged under that particular. But she was actually charged under the SACCOs Act, issues to do with operating a license, operating a SACCO without a license and what have you. So the law within which she was charged may not inflict upon her certain consequences as we may overthink. Secondly, let me say this, Jesse, that at all times, when you see a state officer who has been charged or arraigned in a court of law over certain charges, what we need to ask ourselves is that particular issue at hand, the criminal conduct that is he or she is being charged with, is it an issue that she has abused or misused her office? Has she taken advantage of her office in any way? In this particular regard, no. This is an issue that has happened in 2016 prior to her assumption of this particular office. Which laws is she, under which law is she being charged with? It's a different law altogether. So for me, I'll say she is not immune. She's faced charges. She's now out on cash bail. And Article 228, we still have a control of budget who will still steer the affairs of the Office of the Control of Budget.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And I think going forward, the next thing is the matter will proceed where there are no any issues. The court will, as we have seen previously, it will throw out this particular matter in its entirety. If there are issues, it's a wait and see issue. But I think the other issue that is also important to point out is that in as much as we are saying it's a 2016 issue, the complainant, one Claudia Mweni, is an issue whereby a civil suit has been filed sometime in 2019, thereabout. The matter has been determined at the lower court. It's now facing an appeal at the high court. So it's an issue that is also within the civil court. Okay. Only that we have a scenario whereby now, if I may digress a bit, in our country, every person has a small file by the side. Where you go wrong, something will be fished out. That is why now I think we are a bit surprised in a scenario whereby the reason as to why we're asking a lot in this particular regard is because of owing to the most recent remarks that she has been making. She appeared before the National Dialogue Committee. There are certain remarks that she has made. She has drafted and she has also made a commentary on the National Government Budget Report, Review Report of 2022-2023. She said she's very smart. She said, we are borrowing in dollars. We are supposed to repay in dollars, meaning the shilling is depreciating, meaning we are going to pay more shillings at the moment. And she actually concluded by saying that the treasury is the one that is failing us. So all the same, The reason as to why it is causing a lot of jitters, it is because of why her arrest is coming up at this particular hour. But on the question of whether or not she can be arrested or charged, of course, granted, that can happen.
Okay, well noted. And just to share Nyakango's story, it aired on different TV stations. She said, in 2019, I saw a call from a SACCO that needed someone to sit on the board. I went to see one of the officials in Nairobi who told me they needed to expand the SACCO and bring experts on board. He said, for me to join the board, I needed to sign up as a member first. This is according to the COB. She said, I filed the forms and he told me that if I could save up to 100,000 Kenya shillings by the time of the AGM, I could join the board. Now, in October 2019, I was interviewed and vetted for the COB position, and I was successful. I went back to the SACCO and told them I had gotten the job and therefore needed to exit. I converted my savings into 2 plots of land, though I added some money. So those are part of her revelations into her recent predicament. I later learned that I had been listed as part of the board of directors despite not being elected at an AGM. I'm told the investigator that I had been proposed as a board member pending AGM confirmation, which never happened. He looked satisfied and left. And she adds, I was surprised that out of the list of 11 persons, I was the only one in court in Mombasa. I don't know who is looking for me. I don't know who is after me. So, Mark Bichachi, so many political connotations to this. Perhaps we're reading too much into it, but according to those who are raising a red flag, the timing is suspicious, bearing in mind the words she mentioned during the NADCO report, and thereafter she's been quite critical of the government, as she should be in her position as controller of budget. So when we heard from the COB that, you know, the Treasury tripled her annual salary through the Consolidated Fund Services for the 2023-2024 financial year, noting that 5.6 billion was paid outside the prescribed payroll management system, and perhaps exposing another scandal. What's your reaction to this from a communications point of view?
2 points. Between 5 billion spent wrongly, salaries being tripled, budgeted corruption, as you call it, and someone sitting on a SACCO board that is suspicious. In the minds of the Kenyans, which crime should have had a faster arrest? I'm just asking.
The budgeted corruption one.
Budgeted corruption should be the people who are in the dock already. So that's number one. I don't even need to expound. Number two, this country suffers a horrible disease. And it's a disease that we used to have in my primary school. That if a list of noisemakers was being written and your name was written, your job was to complain about how Jacob and Jane have not been added to that list. This has been my view and continues to be my view. If she is legally wrong and she's been arrested, good for Kenya. But that broom that has swept her cannot forget to sweep the people responsible for funny oil deals, responsible for KEMSA issues during the Uhuru Kenyatta era. Why is it that the more you steal in this country, the more likely you are to be a political leader? In fact, those of us who have a political ambitions, Osido, we need a serious crime to commit. Yeah. Because that's the entry level.
We get there faster.
Yes, you are accepted quickly. So we cannot decide to run a criminal enterprise in our politics and then claim and purport to punish the public. If Okango is guilty.
Nyakango.
Nyakango, sorry. She genuinely needs to be in jail yesterday. But let's not forget, those who budget for corruption should also have a budget in prison as well.
Okay. So is there any political motive from where you sit?
You see, I don't want to play that game.
Okay.
Because politicians misuse it. Every politician who's arrested, whether it is for a woman and her baby who died, whether it's someone who shot a DJ in a club, every time it is political. I don't want to play the political game. If she is guilty, let her face the law. But that broom that is sweeping her should sweep everyone else as well.
Okay. Osido, as you come in, Raila Odinga mentioned that Parliament had vetted her. So do you agree it's an indictment on the August House that we're getting to know about this right now, despite certificate of good conduct, you name it, all those bottlenecks we've put in place to ensure we get the right people in office?
Precisely. And if you look at even the manner in which, without necessarily going into the details of sub judice, looking at the manner in which the matter was being discharged on the floor of the House, it is them against, it is us for her, you against her. And you could see from the different political sides. I remember that before this particular conversation in this debate on the floor of the House, there had been other sideline press statements by other ODM and even, Kenya Kwanza MPs who are aligned to whatever ethnic group that she seemingly could be coming from. And the different reasons as to why probably she was being hunted for and being hunted out of office. Now, Jesse, the Constitution, and again, thank you for making it possible.
Is it our copies to go with?
We'll discuss later.
You are instigating corruption. Embezzling funds.
Chapter 15 gives us 9 commissions. They are called independent commissions. And so we do civic education. So this is also civic education. And within the chapter 15, in Article 248, we have 2 independent officers, the Controller of Budget and the Auditor General. If you go to 249, 240, 250, up to 251, you find how she or he can be removed out of office. This game, this exercise is a game. Mheshimiwa Margaret Nyakango can go to as many courts as these people wish. There is only one way of getting her out of that office. Otherwise, she will stay for 6 years because she enjoys what is called constitutional security of tenure. However, because you asked a political question, let me attempt therefore to respond politically, that if the highest echelons of Kenya's political class want her out, she will go. Because we have seen other independent office holders and constitutional commissioners who also enjoy similar security of tenure leaving because the politicians wanted them out of office. Abaguzi leaders were saying yesterday, or whatever, whenever they made the press release, that how come these people who are junior to the president, every time the president is out of the country. Now, that points another issue. This president's absence to the country, it means there are people who are really hurting. But they were saying, how come they only take advantage over the president's absence? It means that now we know that the president does not want her, or probably the president may not be seeking for her ouster or removal. But however, there could be people who want her out of office for other reasons. Maybe she went and spoke before NADOC and said, oh, budgeted corruption, oh, I've been given money like this. Whatever reasons they are picking against the vetting that we are talking about, to me, already indicts the National Assembly, because it is them who vet. It is DCI that issues the certificate of good conduct, which of course is done annually. So maybe it expired because this is 2019. So we need that one for 2020, which already, if you have one for 2020, it invalidates the offense you committed for why you were given a certificate of good conduct in 2019. So there are many reasons, but the 3 scenarios I see for me is, regardless of how many courts she will be called to, and the delay, even the mentioning on December 19th could be a delay. It can go on until her 6th year in office. But the only constitutional procedure of getting her out of that office is not how many courts she goes to. It is what is called a presidential tribunal, for which any Kenyan can submit a petition to the National Assembly, the Speaker. The officials there will look at it, if it is worth it, and it meets whatever the Constitution calls in Article 249, reasons for removal of an independent office holder.
Yeah.
Pengine, she is gone insane, she is bankrupt, she is violated Articles Chapter 10, Article 6, Chapter 6, and Article 10, National Values and Principles, which up to this level, I don't think she has. Because even if you look at her performance of functions, as Wakili was saying in Article 222 of the Constitution, sub-Article 6, she always releases her reports every 4 months, because that is what the Constitution expects us. So nobody can go and say you have failed in the discharge of your responsibility. So I think for me this is a political game. There are people who probably think that she's talking too much and that she's not supposed to. So what's in it for Mheshimiwa Margaret Nyakango? One is to resign and give them peace, because again the Constitution allows you to do that against your security of tenure principles. Scenario 2 is to stay and fight the war. But as you stay and fight the war, be ready to be arrested every Friday and released every Monday, unless you have a powerful lawyer like Wakili and defend you. Or get hunted out of office. They'll go and get you some propaganda and buy some journalists and maybe some fake people to want to write nasty stories about you. So those are, for me, the scenarios. But insofar as what the Constitution expects, I think this is a game in futility.
Okay, so as we go to The Economist now, let's weigh her weighty statements. And I don't know if you've had the chance to make your submissions on that, because it was done a while back when a COB reveals that her annual salary has been tripled from the Consolidated Fund Services for this financial year. When she mentions that the payroll management system, there could be an issue. And then when you shift focus and you go to yet another very important sit, that's the Auditor General, she equally mentioned, and this was during a forum I happened to attend, that the next big scandal could be in the pending bills. So when we have this very important officers or office holders mentioning that we might be mismanaging our economy, right here, there, and there. How do we approach this from an economical point of view?
I probably not economical, because to me it's straightforward. One, I know Margaret and her own PhD, right free, not those ordinary ones you get on the streets. And she is not insane. Very clear what she wants. Bashir is very clear. Everybody has a file somewhere in the government. It's how big it is. And it can always be pulled. Bashir, ulifanya hivi.
Mark has some.
Has some, yes. So there's that file.
Mine is not big enough. I would be running for office already.
And I liked my brother here saying, it's Margaret to make the call. Do I want to play with the pigs, therefore ready for the mud and all that? And to me, if I was in her position, and Margaret, please, if you can hear me, it's not that the office is constitutional. Who are you as Margaret? What is your integrity telling you? If your integrity is telling you leave. Enjoy, Margaret. You can't miss to do something. Because it's a person, and I started with it's somebody, it doesn't to be structured in this country. She can work anywhere she wants. That's not the point. But the point is her name. And I think what Margaret you have is your name. And if you want people to mess it up, but what is telling you, just step aside. And I think it's so sad when you really, even a class 1 kid can make the correlation between the statements she's making and what's happening. Without going to what it means economically or whatever, I think to me, bottom line, is she makes the right decision and her integrity should guide her. And I think the best thing is, I don't want to have this game with the pigs.
Okay.
They'll make you dirty.
Yeah. Wakili, how do we end this culture of hounding these state officers out of office? Because as we mentioned, it's not the first time, perhaps it won't be the last. How do we end it?
I think this is a pointer to disrespect for these independent offices. Actually, it goes against the entire principle as to why the Constitution have labeled them independent offices. They are labeled as independent offices because they are supposed to do their jobs right. They are supposed to show and guide the government, even where the government has gone wrong. They are supposed to be straightforward, comply with Article 10, be open and accountable to the people. I think this is one of the very few office holders who, over time, we have seen her trying to do her job better.
Right.
The other person was the former Auditor General, Edward Ouko,
Okay.
and former CJ. You know, there are specific individuals who we can even do finger counting. But now, the other issue is over time, what happens? If she leaves this particular office, those particular persons who are now hell-bent on arraigning her in court and pushing through these particular charges will drop. No witnesses will be availed in court. That is what happened to the former CS for Treasury. Even the magistrate, Honorable Andai, kept on pushing on the prosecution counsel to always bring the witnesses. So these witnesses will only be available for as long as the government is keen on you. So, which is why I'm saying, are we having a system that is so much interested in weakening these quote-unquote independent offices? Okay. It goes back to the argument of saying, where we have independent offices, let them be independent. If you are disrespecting these particular independent offices, you are disrespecting the Constitution. And conversely, you have no respect for the very office you hold by yourself. Going forward, let us have respect for the Constitution. And for us, I think as Kenyans, when someone like Margaret Nyakango is arraigned in court, these particular community members or community leaders, this aspect of coming to address the media and telling them that now our person has been arrested should stop. I think if we can all see, you know, we are not coming from outside this country. We can all see what is happening. We can see the good job she is doing. She recently posed a very reasonable question. She said, my salary has been budgeted for 3 times what I've been earning. Actually, she said she's yet to get answers by herself. Even for us as Kenyans, let them charge her, let them arraign her in court, but we are still waiting for those particular answers, even for us.
Jesse, could I just add something? Sure. On the timelines of charges, I know that within the judiciary, there is a lot of grapple with human resource issues around capacity, equipment, and all that. But I think it's probably an overdue recommendation that we need to look at the amount of time that we spend on a case. Because if this is 2016, 2019, we are in 2023, headed to 2024. It's over 5 years, 4 years, a case is going on. And to a level, someone of a level of the control of budget is not, quote unquote, a small person, either in government or in society. So for a case to drag like this, because that is a high value person, an HVP, why can't we agree that for corruption cases like the BBI report had recommended, of course BBI is gone, that within 2 years a matter should be dispensed and dealt with? Why must we keep hiding files and stealing a file from this drawer to the other drawer, and then releasing them depending on what matter or what issue Kevin Osido is discharging? I think we need to agree within the judiciary that as a country, certain cases need to be dispensed and discharged within this amount of time. I know that the Chief Justice and the President of the Judiciary is working with her team, and of course with challenges like budgetary issues and all that. But I think we need to agree as a country that we need to get to a level where a matter is presented to court, within what amount of time should it be discharged and dealt with?
I think just to clarify and to add on to that, when you look at the anti-corruption crimes, the law has actually put in or has capped a period of 24 months, especially where this particular suspect, let's say, has been suspended or is on half pay. So within 24 months, if that particular timeline expires, the law provides that his salary should be reinstated and that particular suspension should be lifted, and it should be his mandate of discharging that particular, his office, he should be able to come back and continue discharge. So I think for anti-corruption cases, that particular slight issue has been addressed, but I think there are some guidelines that the judiciary is still working on. But I get your concern. You will find a scenario where someone has been charged in court, the file has been years and years been in court without any conclusive mechanism. And recently, even Justice Professor Nixon Sifuna has blamed the office of the DPP, saying that the DPP officers or the prosecution councils, they need to up their game. Actually, I'll tell you this, even as a private litigant, we are finding it, I think the courts are trying. When we appear in court of late, and we try to tell the court that we are seeking for adjournment, the magistrates and judges are of late a bit keen on making sure that these matters are concluded. So I think we are going somewhere, and I don't want to be, and I don't want to side with the judiciary as much as I'm a member. I think that is the only organ that is doing better.
Yeah.
Of all the three organs,
Absolutely.
it is doing better than the rest, but it also has a long way to go because there is also a lot of corruption and unfairness.
It's doing a better among the worst constitution.
It is the tallest dwarf.
and by the way, Jesse, you know, as a governance trainer, I want to request that I need to help Mheshimiwa Bichachi because we cannot have a scenario where we send parliamentarians home.
I know.
No.
It's a matter of hyperbole.
Let me finish. So that government is effective, there are three arms: executive, judiciary, and then legislature.
I am well aware of that.
And so what we need to do is to strengthen the recall clause. We've made it so difficult for Kenyans to recall their leaders, including non-performers like those that we have in the 13th Parliament. Yeah. So we need to review the recall clause and make it easy, because the provisions as they are right now will not be possible for any Kenyan, regardless of how much money you have, even to buy people in a constituency.
Can I offer you religious advice?
No, you are not a bishop.
I can offer you religious advice. Jesus said, if your arm causes you to sin, better to cut it off than to have your whole body go to hell. So if the arms of parliament are not working,
cut it off.
Recall.
To cut off one.
The only constitutional mechanism is a recall, which is so hard because we can't go and announce parliamentarians and then it means we will not be able to appropriate budgets, so government cannot work. It means that even the bursaries for kids, schools and all that will not be done. So but those are, I think, they are good questions that we are bringing up to continue the conversation.
And I feel it's a bit more surprising because when you look at the 12th Parliament vis-a-vis the 13th one, it is said that by statistics, almost 2/3 of the previous ones did not get re-elected. We seem to be having fresher, younger bloods, but now we have had a lot of expectations only for them to perform worse than their predecessors. So we are surprised. We seem to have appreciated the aspect of this time round, voting in new blood. The statistics, the numbers, I think all these are new faces. There are many MPs who I think myself, Bichachi, may not even know because these are now newcomers. But now that they are new entrants, we expected them to be coming up with.
But we need cars for new blood,
Okay, gentlemen, as we finalize, perhaps we can go through the editorial cartoons, because we have 10 minutes or so till the end of the show, even as we get your final take. The editorial cartoon on the Standard, all to do with the NADCO report. And perhaps you can see in the dustbin is chapter 6. Quite unfortunate depiction right there, but I don't know, Sido, is this the truth of the matter?
That's purely what it is. Because I presume that the cartoonist is depicting chapter 6 to mean the chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya, that addresses the leadership and integrity, where we also have Article 10 within chapter 6 that talks about national values and principles. So the imagination could be that we have hailed NADCO, which from BBI, which is scrapped, because I see BBI is scrapped, but most of the provisions within the NADCO report more or less resemble the recommendations that were made in the BBI report, which was trashed. So I imagine that is the top table tool or document that whatever the government wants to do. Now the NADCO report is a priority against all the other reports that I think are now trashed through the
Let me ask you. And perhaps use a very strong American word. Who gave S to this report?
Precisely no one, because if you look at...
it's just a PR game.
Yes.
The bombers, whatever.
It was a management mechanism to tame Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga and my thinking, politically speaking, and from governance, and basically to stall the demonstrations and what could be that... the opposition was thinking. Because if you look at the provisions of this report, honestly speaking, it does not address the reason why people went to the streets and why about 11 or so Kenyans were killed, shot, with live bullets and killed. It doesn't address why businesses were destroyed. It doesn't address why people were maimed. It, in fact, does not address the serious concerns like cost of living. Because most of these things, and we said it even before this committee was put in place, that these things are policy, they are legislative, they are institutional. The constitutional issues can be addressed constitutionally, and that is really one, which is what I think, as Mark comes in, they are trying to run away from. Because creation of certain offices is a referendum issue. There is no way you will run out of it. And Kenyans are not ready for that referendum. Issues are about taxation. It's legal. You go to parliament, you do a supplementary budget, you review the budget, you pass it through parliament. Of course, we have talked about parliament, and I think as a professor says, who gives us about it, it will pass if government wants it to pass, it will fail if government does not want it.
All right.
Issues about taxes are policy. The CS will stand and say, from today, we are bringing back subsidies. And it is done. You don't need a law, you don't need a committee, you don't need a report.
Okay, briefly.
In fact, if you want to know how big a joke that report is, they said one of the things was police brutality. How many pages on police brutality?
0.
How many lives mourned?
0.
Is there any form of compensation in that
0.
report for victims of those demonstrations? None. Let me tell you, politicians are about politicians. That's what it is about. Anyone who puts hope on someone called a politician, my friend, it is better you go to hell expecting to find winter.
And by the way, it is the one I have seen, Jesse, as Wakili comes in, it is 248 pages.
Yeah.
How many Kenyans will download it and read it? Even if you were to download it and print it, and what time do you have to read against all the other competing priorities?
And the bigger question is it even is it a report that can stand without chapter 6? That's the bigger question.
Right.
Without chapter 6, you cannot even talk about
Precisely.
You cannot refer to it as a report. And I agree with Kevin. All those issues, majority of them that are listed inside there are basic things that they can take care of in the house.
If goodwill was there.
Yes, and the other thing is, this particular venture has not been started to manage Raila Odinga. No. It's been started to manage the people of Kenya.
Yeah.
I think that is it.
Right. And I think that what I get from this cartoon, it's really thrown chapter 6 out of there. And if you cannot really look at chapter 6, and I think Bashir, you came out very strongly. Bashir just shared with us that if you don't respect the constitution, which made you the position you are in, it's so sad, because it goes to you don't even respect yourself. If I don't respect him as an officer because of the constitution, and I'm in my position as because of the constitution, then you're not supposed to be in that office. Really, that's what I get from that cartoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jesse, by the way, many things about this report and the country and how Kenya needs to move forward. We've had many of these reports of this nature. This could probably be the 13th or so.
Yep.
Two glaring things that are normally missing is an implementation framework, an implementation matrix, and a monitoring and evaluation framework. We don't know when what will be done. For instance, the first item talks about auditing the 2022 general elections. It doesn't tell us how. It says, now the second item talks about increasing the IEBC selection panel from 7 members to 9 members. There is already a panel in place. The report does not tell us when and how. So the goodwill to be able to implement and actually see this pushing the country forward, I don't think is there.
And just for a second,
Yeah.
when you look at some of the critical recommendations that were made in this report, for example, how to improve or audit our previous election, there are certain recommendations that were made by the Supreme Court in the Raila Odinga petition.
And are missing.
Those particular rulings and judgments that are made by the court, if only those things could also be done before the subsequent election, we could be somewhere. So that tells you what was the essence of even organizing for this particular thing. This was to manage the expectation. And do you think the members, the Right Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, a seasoned lawyer and politician, do you think he does not know that whatever is being discussed cannot be done on the floors of the houses? They do know. So I think this was a ploy between the government and the opposition on this particular issue to manage the expectations of the people of Kenya. You do not need an article report to amend the Finance Act and to introduce a few regulations to lower VAT or even scrub it off or even introduce some subsidies. So
it's a gazette notice.
Yeah, so I think the entire thing is to just manage the public expectation.
Yeah. Okay, so the question is, has public expectation been managed? Anyway, gentlemen, as we finalize, take a look at that cartoon. I hope that is not the situation back at home as we are bound to celebrate the Christmas holidays. Definitely showing the piggy bank is empty. Just a couple of buttons that are coming out, and Mwananchi is left there rubbing his...
Empty. I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
If you can't afford to go on holiday, do this. Exchange bedrooms with your kids. Change is as good as a rest. They get to go to the master bedroom.
Okay.
They know the amenities there.
Yeah.
You tell them that's their holiday. Akili mtuwangu. Akili.
All right, gentlemen, final comments. Briefly, 30 seconds each as we finalize. Perhaps you can comment on that or wish our viewers Merry Christmas. I don't know. Finally, here.
I think for me, I'll say that we are looking forward to a better parliament in 2024.
Yeah.
A parliament that will be able to understand its role better.
Okay.
A parliament that will know that very many issues can be addressed in that house. It's a very, very powerful house. We have given them a lot of powers. Let them just appreciate that. They have to understand that. They have to appreciate that. Actually, when I tell you that I've worked in the 11th one, you will realize that majority of them will end up appreciating their roles towards the last 1 year. That is when they will want to tell the electorates, look, now I know, understand better, give me another time. And I think this is the time.
Okay.
This is time to make a difference.
All right.
Let them make 2024 a difference.
Great men rise from tough situations. This country is in a tough place. We need great men and women to lead us.
Right.
It behooves all of us to achieve that higher sense of self that does not just want to profiteer for themselves, to eat for themselves, but thinks about the society and who is going to be our hero. That is the question that every person in leadership needs to ask. The time for revenge, the time for blame shifting is done. It's you. Let's get the show on the road.
Okay. Osido, briefly.
Your Excellency the President, we love you around. You are our #1 envoy locally. It is the locals, the Kenyans, who voted for you. We love you when you are around because you will be able to listen to us, we'll be able to reach out to you, we'll be able to see you express yourself both verbally and non-verbally over the things that we feel. Sometimes, by the way, we think that you create excuses to run away from our issues by your global or international trips. Ask yourself, sir, what value do those trips present to Kenyans? Have you really evaluated the number of jobs that you bring back to us? Do they even amount to what the young people would be expecting you to deliver? Please, be present. As we go to the holidays, be safe, pray for this country. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, just might say it's good to have new lawyers and new people here in this. I think it's a very good succession plan.
Yeah.
But I'll pick a cue from him. Yesterday I had a lunch with a young man, and he's saying they follow the social media. They can see what the sons of the rich are doing.
And they're following.
And they're not just following, they are going to take action. So it's important that the opportunity is there, as he pointed out, for the president to step back this Christmas. Use it, Mr. President, to think through about this country. It's not headed in the right direction.
Gentlemen, I thank you for your input. Definitely appreciated, from the experienced to the... I don't use greenhorns, but gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. The future is bright. All right, joined by Professor Gituro Wainaina, Suleiman Bashir, Mark Bichachi, and Kevin Osido. Have yourself a fantastic start to the day, and good morning. My name is Jesse Rogers. Keep it KTN News.